Welcome back to the future of political consulting. In this episode, we're digging into what happens when you treat social media as a real organizing tool. We're joined by Taryn Rosencrans, AAPC board member and founder and CEO of New Blue Interactive. Taryn sits down with Gabi Zutro, digital strategy advisor to the Zoran Mamdani campaign and 2025 AAPC Top Ops Award winner. You'll hear Gabi break down how she empowered the campaign to use chatbots and DM automation to turn Instagram enthusiasm into real-world action, capturing thousands of emails, filling canvases, and driving people from scrolling to showing up. We also zoom out to what this means for the future of the industry, why movement energy changes your digital ladder of engagement, and what every political consultant should be testing now to be ready for 2026 and beyond. Taryn, take it away.
Well, hello and welcome. I'm really excited today to talk to Gabi from the Mamdani campaign to kind of discuss some of the most interesting things. I have to tell you, Gabi, I'm really excited about this because as a fellow digital strategist, we always like talking about innovations and finding ways to connect with people. And I've been doing a lot of work myself about the offline online community because I think so much of COVID was about connection and like seeking it again. And so we've been obsessed with how we can use technology to do this. And you guys were really successful at that. So I want to find out all about it. And I'm excited to have you on. My first question to you is to just give like everyone who's listening a little bit of an idea of what you did for the campaign and what your role was and some of the things that you are most proud of.
Yeah, namely what I did for the campaign and what a lot of people have been asking me to talk about is my implementation of a social media chatbot called ManyChat. This is a chatbot that I have been experimenting with for the past couple of years. It was built to be a tool that creators and small businesses and brands use to kind of like help sell protein powders and Canva templates and ebooks. But I've been experimenting with it as a political organizing tool for the last couple of years, and I pitched the campaign on it last spring, and they were interested in trying it out as a means of getting people off of Instagram and out volunteering and voting. So that was namely what I was brought in to focus on, was building out their social media chatbot infrastructure to help turn their online enthusiasm and energy into offline results in action. And I also was brought on to work on a couple other digital projects too. I helped with their like final sprint email program during the primary, as well as pioneered their trial reels program on Instagram that got them hundreds of thousands of followers during the primary. And but I did not work on content production. I can't take any credit for that. That was the incredible video and content team in Melted Solids. But yeah, I worked on a couple different digital things with them.
Those are all really exciting because it gets back to exactly what I was getting at. It's like, how can we bring people from behind the screen, but also engage them in the community? And that's sort of what digital does. It brings this online and an offline community. So if you can engage people to bring them to offline activities, that's great. Tell me a little bit about what those asks look like that we're bringing about the offline engagement. Like, especially if it's a mini chatbot, like how are you getting them to like, is it that you're getting them to give you information so you can, resolicit them in some way, or is it really happening live with the mini chat?
Some and some, but mostly I would say my goal was to do lead capture in Instagram DMs. So asking people for their email then and there. We did this in a couple of ways, like you might have seen posts from Zoran's account saying, comment Canvas now, and we'll send you the link to sign up to Canvas. And then people will comment Canvas now on the post and we'll DM them the link automatically. That's the bot at work. Okay. And so sometimes people in those situations would be clicking through to another website and like filling out a form there and giving us their email address there so that we can, A, sign them up for that Canvas, and B, have their information to reorganize them and ask them more things again and again. But another way that we used the bot was to natively in DMs capture their email address. So saying, hey, if you'd like to receive emails from us, just type out your email address below and we'll put you in our system. And then they type it out natively in DMs. and the bot automatically would capture it there and pop it over into our CRM, and we
So
captured
easy.
thousands of emails that way. And always to me, like the purpose of engaging people in DMs and like at this point in your ladder of engagement is to get them from interested
Hmm.
and bought in to taking action. So that we can make ever escalating asks of them until they're like leaders in the campaign. Yeah, so it was some and some. It was like asking people to do a specific thing, and sometimes it was asking people to just hand over their email address so that we could ask them for something specific later. I'll also say that when we would hit them with auto responses, so an auto reply, whenever a random person would message us and end up in our DMs, we'd respond to every single message. And
Hmm.
then whenever anybody would tag the account in their story, the bot would automatically reply to them.
Oh,
And
nice.
those would, like, we would be in those initial messages asking them to do specific calls to action, whether that was canvassing, phone banking, donating, whatever it was. We use that opportunity to ask them to do something, anything, to click through, to sign up. Um, and, those are opportunities that maybe would have just been met with silence otherwise.
Right, right.
Uh,
So many times, especially
yeah.
with politics, because there's not enough people to do the work. And you found a great way to automate this and to make this something that makes it easy. I'm curious, were there more effective tactics within those? Like as you're talking through this, is it a ladder of engagement? Did you start with the lowest bar thing that you're asking them to do? Or was it that, it was dependent on what they were asking or which tactic they did in the first place?
Some and some. So I always tell my clients that on social media, what you want to be asking people to do is the lowest bar ask,
Yes.
just the thing that they're most likely to do. You don't want to, like, the first time you talk to them, be like, and will you come to this event? You want to be like, would you like to sign this petition? Would you like to take the pledge to vote? Something they can do sitting on their couch right then and there so that you do the lead capture, you get their email, and you can ask them more stuff later. Um, but for us, what was so interesting about this campaign was the energy was so high. The
Yeah.
enthusiasm was so intense. People were willing to go from being your follower to showing up at a
They
campaign.
were willing to do the high
They
bar. That's
were
kind of
willing to
why
make
I
that
asked because
jump.
yeah,
And
it's
that
a
has everything.
personality for each of our, candidates
Right.
that you see. And so some people you will have more of a movement where they're ready to take that next action. There's actually
Right.
really no probably prescribed rule. It's like a feel for it. So you're really looking at the data, I'm assuming, and then saying, oh, look, I think we can jump to this. And sort of
Yeah.
making those kinds of decisions. Is that how that
Well,
worked?
with like other clients who don't have as much of a movement behind them, I would basically be like, don't even ask them to show up to Canvas in an initial message. Like that is
Yeah.
not a good use of anybody's time to even read the text of that button. Like you're not going to get a lot of people to show up
Yeah.
at the event. Whereas here it was just very clear people were hungry to show up in person. They were hungry to volunteer. They wanted to be involved. They like the campaign could post one day, we're having a scavenger hunt tomorrow, and then thousands of people are in the streets the very next day. So, yeah, you are looking at the data. You're also it's part science, part art, part intuition and gut
Yeah.
feeling. But just as far as like what was more successful than like which tactics were most successful, what we saw is that the comment to DM flows, so the comment canvas now and we'll send you the link, comment phone bank now and we'll send you the link, those had unbelievably high click-through rates.
Wow.
Those had about like an average of like what was the click-through rate? I think it was like an average of 70%, even higher
Huge,
during the
huge.
primary. So about 70% of the people who we sent those links to clicked on them. I don't have to tell you this. That's nuts. Some of those calls to action had a 98% click-through rate. That is astounding.
Yeah,
And the
and those
reason,
are like those might be astounding to people who are like, "Oh, I don't do digital," right? Like you're like, "Oh, well, that's still a huge number." But like to people who do digital, like just think like 10 times less and you which is near zero, and people are still proud of some of those numbers.
Yeah.
So that's really, really incredible. That's
And the
really
reason that
incredible.
those were so high was because these are links that people are asking you for. They are self-identifying as someone who's gonna click on that link because they're like, I want a canvas, I'm commenting canvas now, and I'm expecting it in my inbox, so they're more likely to click on
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And I think our high, that 98% one was a merch giveaway. It was like
Oh
people
yeah,
could
for
go and
sure.
pick up
People love the
their
merch. Who doesn't love
people
merch?
really wanted merch on this campaign because there wasn't any for sale. So when they posted, like, there are
They
window
could get it.
posters that you
Yeah.
can go pick up, we had a 98% click rate on those. So then, kind of what you would expect to see with the other types of flows is what you did see. So we had much lower click rates
Hmm.
on the automated replies to people who were just messaging the account. Like they kind of expect a reply because they're messaging you. They kind of
Right.
want to get something back, but you still see like single digit to low double digit clicks on those buttons that are like, thanks so much. We can't reply to everybody, but in the meantime, do you want to sign up to Canvas? Do you want to donate? Do you want a phone bank? You still get some clicks on those, so they're very worth sending. And then even lower clicks would be when you do an auto reply to people who are tagging you in their story because they're publicly associating with you. They like are
Right.
interested in you, but they didn't message you. They're not necessarily receiving or like expecting to
So they're
receive
not
a message
expecting a
back.
reply.
So you'll see lower click rates, but still some, like still very much worth sending messages to those people. So it was kind of just proportionate to how much a person was expecting a reply from you,
Hmm.
was like what
Hmm.
you would see in the response and click rates.
Which I think is always in digital, right? Like it's probably the foundation of what we do, but we don't think about it in these other contexts when we're not thinking about like I sent you a message, which is really that's the unsolicited message a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a
And what
little
I'll
bit of
also
prospecting.
say is on Facebook, we only set up our Facebook, the Facebook flows in the very last days of the campaign because we were having some technical issues. But those people, for whatever reason, were just way more likely to hand over their email addresses. Like, and I
Yeah,
think that this is just kind of true of Facebook. It's an older crowd. It
it
is
is,
people who are
right?
like
Yeah.
less afraid to be handing over their information, less like aware of security risks, and
Right.
they were just like really hot to trot with handing over their emails, which was cool to see.
That is, and something we all might not realize. I know it's so funny because like I always talk about the evolution of Meta, right? And now it's like I joke all the time. My 17-year-old daughter is now on it because it's like ironic, like they're like, oh, it's so cute. Like we can chat with grandma. I'm like, ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows. So maybe it'll come back.
It's kind of back. Like just in the last year, my dog, who is a famous dog influencer, she got over 50,000 followers on
And
Facebook in
I
the
know I
last
do.
year.
There's more people. Like I said, they're like all of a sudden the young people, and I see like her friends pop up as like suggested friends. So she's not
Interesting.
alone on it. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I think one of the questions I was actually curious about is just, is do you think that the chatbots, I mean, yes, it's like from the consultant and our end, right? We're like, oh, this is so much more efficient. It's probably more cost effective, and we'll get into that in a minute. But my question is like, is it also because they're staying in app a lot of the time? Like you did say there was a lot of like email collection and then we could resolicit. But that's why I sort of asked that. Is it because they get to stay in their platform, they get to stay in their app. So they're in the Facebook, they're in Meta, they're in Insta, they're where they want to be, and thereby that's allowing them to do something without going somewhere else.
So
And
it
that's probably
really,
half the battle.
yeah, I mean, using ManyChat just allowed us to deeply reduce the friction involved in getting
Yeah.
people off platform and doing lead capture because asking someone to click a link in bio is not very effective most of
Right.
the time. But when you are keeping people in app, there's no like lag time for them waiting for a website to load. There's no extra clicks that they need to do, and they can just go back to scrolling. So who likes it better than the user though? Is the app.
Right.
Instagram really does not want its users to
They
leave
don't
the
want,
app.
right. So they might algorithm wise give you more
Right,
attention.
exactly. So Instagram's like ideal use of the app is when you are locked in, scrolling, absolutely addicted. Time is getting
Yeah.
completely lost and meaningless. Like you are just consuming content. And what they really don't like in a piece of content is anything that asks the user to exit that infinite
Hmm.
scroll. And if you have a piece of content that's like, go hit the link in my bio, you are asking the user to exit their infinite scroll and break their focus. And then that means for Instagram that they are consuming less ads. So Instagram is
Right.
making less money off of them. So Instagram will downrank a piece of content
Of course.
that makes you exit the infinite scroll. So ManyChat has this interesting loophole algorithm wise that allows your content to keep somebody in that use of Instagram,
Yeah.
but still allows them to do your call to action. So rather than being like, go hit the link in my bio, and they exit their infinite scroll and they go to your bio and they go to your website and they do all this stuff and it's like lots of friction, and it's annoying to do. Rather than that, you can say, comment Canvas now and we'll send you the link. They comment Canvas now. They engage with your post, which is great for the
Right. And you're
algorithm.
still getting them to do the other thing.
And
Yeah.
then you're also sending them the link that they can check out later that's always going to be in their DMs, and they never have to see another piece of content from you ever again, and they never have to navigate to your profile ever. They just have that link now, and they didn't leave the infinite scroll. So Instagram doesn't like ding your content as being
Hmm.
something that made them exit the
Yeah.
the
That
ideal
that
use
yeah. Because
case.
then they're like, do you so when you have this happen, I'm curious about this then, like you were saying so they don't have to see the content from you again. Are they seeing quite a bit of the content? Because I do think everybody's try to get away from content, right? Like, oh, I don't want another text message. I don't want another email. But like because these are people who are so interested in doing something and you're giving them relevant information about what they signed up for, you're maybe not seeing as much of that because it's not like a cold prospect. It's a highly qualified one who's like, I want to
Yes.
hear from you. So I imagine you're still seeing success when you're following up with them individually and resoliciting for more canvases, more events, even probably fundraising. But like and I'm making sure I'm not making the wrong assumption, but it seems like that's what you were getting at. And tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I don't have a ton of the data from the Mamdani campaign about like how these ManyChat contacts then like performed in the list. But
Hmm.
when I've used it with other clients, what I'll say is there's a very low unsubscribe rate when
Yeah.
you solicit them.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, you're making an ask of your warm audience on Instagram, or like sometimes you're making an ask of someone who's just seeing you for the first time, and maybe they
Sure.
will do the
Sure.
thing you're asking them to do. But um, like basically, yeah, these are people who want something from you. They asked you for the link. Whereas, like, I receive about a dozen cold texts a day from campaigns I've never
You
heard
do?
of and
I
don't
can't
ever
imagine.
and I
Actually,
don't
I can
ever
only
write
imagine that
to.
you're only at a dozen. Like, what?
Yeah, a
You're
dozen, yeah,
lucky.
maybe is conservative. But I really like, and not to give Meta too much credit, like, I'm not like a big Meta head. Like what they have in place, because they want to keep their users on platform, are parameters around spam and what messages you can send to people when they have not messaged you yet. So you can't, using ManyChat, you can't just endlessly message people automated
Right.
messages. They have to respond to you before you can message them again.
Okay.
So, in one sense, like when you're using the comment to DM automation where someone's commenting Canvas now, you're sending them the link, they requested that from you. They consented to it. They're asking you for something. You're giving them something they want. You're providing something of value to them. And when you're responding to their DMs, when you're sending the auto reply to their DMs, you are also responding to them. They hit you up. So, um, I really like this element of consent that's involved in using a chatbot like this, and it just like feels much more two-way. And like, yeah, it's a way that you're able to provide value to the people who are the most interested in your work, that your biggest fans. You're finally
Yeah.
able to respond to them and make sure they have what they need to get more involved in your campaign rather than meeting them in the DMs with silence or not giving them a way that's easy to engage with you and get off platform. Like, this is really just like eliminating a lot of friction and offering more opportunities at scale. Like
Yeah.
I've been that community manager, you know, I've been the guy who's
Right.
supposed to be responding to DMs, and it's impossible to get to them
It's
all.
impossible, especially if you have a movement. And that was sort of what I was trying to get at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like we all know as consultants, we are always looking for the magic bullet that will make us be more efficient while being more
Yeah.
cost effective. And those aren't always in balance.
And what I'll
Um,
say one more thing about this is that I think a lot of people, a lot of campaigns have set up auto replies just
mhm.
natively in the apps. And those are helpful because it's like, if you want to get involved, click this. If you want to
Right,
do whatever. But what those end up doing is freaking out and spamming your reply guys. And it makes it
right.
really unfun to message you and really unfun to tag you because your biggest fans are just getting hit with like these repetitive spammy messages. Whereas ManyChat kind of allowed us to like customize and tailor messages based on whether people had messaged us before, what they
Right.
were interested in, whether they were locals, and segment like who was getting what messages so that they weren't just getting repetitive spammy messages. And at a certain point, they weren't getting any more replies from us. So to encourage our reply guys, like we want reply guys messaging us. We
Yeah.
want that kind of interaction, and we don't want to freak them out and spam them.
Do you have, I should say, do you have a way, or were you just maybe doing it geographically to determine whether these people were voters? Like, I'm just thinking about like voting information as being one of the most things that we have done both with our text messaging. There's lots of technologies out there that are doing this, but like, that's where you get the most of like repeat questions right in a row. And so the mini chat is a perfect thought there. And so I was just curious if you did anything around voter outreach, but also like if that was something you were able to determine, or if it was just
So
by
you're
zip
not
code.
able to determine that initially. Obviously, on Instagram, you can see how many of your
Right.
followers are based in which cities. So we could see like how much our voter base was growing as like our followers increased, but you can't use ManyChat to identify people. What you
Okay.
can do is ask them to identify themselves. So
Yeah.
like in one
I
of our
figured you had a way to do it. That's
yes, in one of our follow-up messages, we would ask like, hey, have you registered to vote for Zoran Mamdani yet on November 4th? And people could be like, yes, I did. They get tagged as a New York City voter. Uh, Not yet, tagged as a New York City voter. I don't live in New York City, tagged as not a New York City voter. And then those people, like the people who do live in New York City, are going to get a canvassing ask. And the people
right.
who don't live in New York City are going to get a phone banking ask. So those kinds of things. You can get people to self-identify themselves, and then you get to tag them in your system. So you know which customized, tailored message to send them next, or send them
Ah,
later the next time
okay.
you message them.
Well, and it helps with some of the stuff we were talking about. Like now it's getting highly qualified and curated information to them. So they're going to respond with a 98%. Like, they're going to have better response rates when you're giving them the information that they want and in a timely manner because you're able to do that.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes all of this overwhelms people. And again, that was like something that like I asked you that question sort of because I knew there was probably a simple way of doing it versus sometimes we think we have to budget this large amount and there's all these things that we have to do. And it sounds like, I'm wondering what you would tell somebody if they wanted to budget for something like this. Like, is it a small, medium, large, and can you scale it accordingly?
It's a pretty small amount of money. It's like incredibly cheap for what it does. What I'll say is during the primary, because like, I got them a promotional deal where they got like 2 free weeks or whatever, and anybody can get that. But like in the first 2 months of using it, what did we send? We sent over 77,000 automated messages, with over 21,000 click-throughs on those messages. And we spent in those 2 months a total of $318. Yeah, which, and like our estimate is that we added about 10,000 emails to our list from these ManyChat messages, which, if you're doing the math, brings you to a CPA of around 3 cents.
Yeah.
Um, Pretty cheap, I will
Well,
say.
and that's a lot lower of a cost per contact for those playing outside of the digital world, you and I know that digital costs, what the digital costs are. But if you're playing outside the digital world here, think about the fact of how effective what she's saying is, because a cost to contact via mail, a cost to contact door knock, a cost, like all of these things are going to have a cost per contact, and that is a significantly less cost per contact that you can add into your mix. You're not going to necessarily replace everything, but you want to add it in because it's inexpensive enough to be able to do that.
Definitely. And the way that I'm not sure how most chatbots price, but the way that ManyChat prices is they scale up based on the number of contacts you have. So, at the end of the campaign, through November, I think we spent like around $1,400
Mhm.
total to send over 144,000 automated messages, which is still cheap. It's still cheap. And
Oh, it's a lot cheaper cost per, like, again, if you're putting a little spreadsheet together of your cost per contact per medium, that's really,
yeah.
really great.
Yeah, and what I will say is that while of course, like I never advise my clients to like chase after the shiny object, like just because it's the hot new thing everyone's using. I typically am like, this is probably not the right size for you. Like, don't spend a bunch of money on something that isn't necessarily going to work for you the way it works for a big campaign or vice versa. And here is one of the few places where I'm like, this is worth whatever amount of money you're going to spend on it because it starts at 15 bucks a month. Not to like be a sales pitching right now, but like for real, it's just cheap. And like even if you're a tiny campaign, 15 bucks a month is just
Yeah.
worth it for what it does. And if you are a tiny campaign that's not doing a lot of messaging volume, that doesn't have very high engagement, I always still recommend that people set it up anyways. And it doesn't have to be ManyChat, it can be something else. Like Oak has a great Oak Amplify is a great chat bot. Like there's other ones, there's Caucus, like there's
Yep.
a million other ones. Regardless, like I think that it is worth your time to set up when you are small, before you have a high volume of engagement, because it prepares you for when you do go viral. If you do, it's so
Mhm.
that you can have this set up when your key moment comes. And when you are suddenly hit with a ton of messages and lots of people wanting to do something more for your campaign, you have this automation in place to catch those people and get them off platform.
Yeah, for sure. And I think so often you see like it's scalable, which is why I asked you, because I wanted folks to, who are listening, who are consultants, to be like, look, this is scalable and it works. Regardless of the level, you don't have to be the shiniest star. When we talk to our clients a lot, like, you know, we always say like there are going to be some times where people are holding the buckets to keep the money that's flowing from the, like, right, like you just have to hold it steady and that's all you have to do as a client. Same with followers, likes, engagement, right? Sometimes it's just luck, right? But when you don't have those moments, this is still something that you can do with whatever following size you have, right? Like, and it can help you even build a following, because once you engage with somebody, you are one step away from somebody who has a big following. And it's expensive to do influencers. We work with influencers a lot, but it's not as scalable. This is something that is scalable, and you're reaching those, I'm going to call them micro influencers, just people who live in the city who have huge followings, because
Yeah.
not everyone is even an influencer per se that has who influence over where you are. So if you're running for like the county council somewhere, there's somebody in your community who's a teacher who has a lot of influence and sway and happens to have a lot of followers. So
And
think
what I'll
think
say
of it in that context.
on the scalability note, like it becomes more cost effective the more you use it, which is not always a guarantee for all tactics, but
Never,
like it's
never.
pretty much guaranteed here. Um, I'm obsessed with this bot.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're here. And like I said, I was so excited to talk to you because I think this is so much of what we were doing. I think I have like just one other question, and I'm just curious. I think a lot of times, I don't know if guidelines is the right word, but like people are scared by chatbots, and they're scared by AI, and they're scared by like big scary buzzwords, and other people just want to hear those words because they love them, but I'm wondering if there's any guidelines you would recommend to someone who is trying to work with this and do with this. And maybe it's guidelines, maybe it's best practices, maybe it's things to avoid some of the things that people are scared of. But I definitely would like your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of trainings on this, and I think anybody who's been to one of my trainings in the last like 6 months will tell you, like, it does look a little scary at first, but it is not, it's pretty simple. Like, I'm not a coder, like, I'm a social media expert, and like, these tools are very usable.
Yeah.
And what I'll say, like, the general guidelines are like, don't spam people. Like,
Hmm.
use these bots to build trust over
Hmm.
time by not spamming people, by only sending people messages that are relevant to them and not
Yeah.
sending them redundant, repetitive messages. Do that through tagging people and making sure you have the data on them so that you can send them the correct message when the time comes.
Oh, something people forget sometimes, but I love that you said that. I love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
people forget to do it on all kinds of mediums. But yeah, and then I'd say like when you're this is like a kind of micro best practice, but if you're using the comment to DM tool,
Yeah.
a way to avoid accidental triggers or like unnecessary sends is to not use too common a word. Like if you're running in New York City, don't use the word Bronx as one of your triggers because you're going to send people
Again, something
accidentally.
probably people forget.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best tips are the ones that people just aren't going to be
So
thinking.
my big tip on triggers is that I always like to combine two words because then you're basically never going to get an accidental trigger. You increase the likelihood of typos, but if you just combine two simple words, like people are only going to comment that when prompted.
Right.
Um, and yeah, those are some of my best practices. There's a
Those
million.
are great. Those are great. Like you don't have to have more than two big ones that will actually make a huge difference in the success people have. And I think that's fantastic. I will tell you, I have really enjoyed our conversation. I don't know if there's anything else you want to tell anyone who's listening out there about this, or what your biggest point would be to make to someone who wants to try this.
I guess my biggest point here is that, like, when I came onto the Mom Donnie campaign about halfway through the campaign, I came on because when when Zoran posted the video of him confronting Tom Homan in Albany after the illegal abduction of
Yeah.
Mahmoud Khalil, I could see within about an hour of that video being live that their account was about to experience an explosion of
Mhm.
engagement. And I just knew that from my work with other clients that ManyChat could really help them take those people and take that energy and translate it to offline and make sure that they were really, really taking advantage of the online enthusiasm and turning it into offline results. And like that's why I reached out to them when I did. And I think if you've got clients or if you are a campaign that is wondering what all my clients wonder, which is like, how do we get these people off of social media? How do we end up with not just a gigantic, awesome Instagram account at the end of this, but a win? How do
Yeah.
we make sure this translates to a win? Like, this is a tool you should really be looking into. And again, like, think about setting it up before you need it. Think
Yeah.
about setting it up now so that you have experimented with it and battle tested it by the time the midterms need you to have your stuff together. Like now's the time to get started. And I don't just mean this with this kind of like new tactic. I mean this with all organic social media. Like start experimenting right now so that you're ready to get the information to the people who need to hear it when it's election season for you.
Yeah.
Now's the time.
Yeah. And I think so much of this too, as you're saying, is like meeting the moment, right? And like really making sure you're taking advantage of the moment. I can think about over the years when you think of social media, all the times there was a viral video and then the people didn't have enough money, or there was a viral video and they lose because they just couldn't translate it
Yeah.
into the campaign part. And what I think is really exciting about what you're doing is that you're trying to bring to clients, candidates, organizations. I think this works for a lot of different things in the political sphere here, is that you are finding ways to make it efficient, effective, to meet that moment. And that's so much of what we're all trying to do out there as
Yeah.
political consultants. And so kudos for you and continuing to explore that. And I think again, I so much of this is a mystery to folks. So I always love having conversations where we can demystify some of the tools and ways that people are doing things. So thank you so much for coming on. And I really enjoyed talking with you. It's been fantastic.
That was our chat with Taryn Rosencrans and Gabi Zutro. Thanks for listening to The Future of Political Consulting. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to The Future of Political Consulting on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join the conversation by following us on social media at the AAPC. Thanks for listening.